The following program is being brought to you by Reign of Fire Radio, a media outreach arm of Reign of Fire Evangelical Ministries. Our commitment is to sponsor programs that will assist in living a Christian life and win others through teaching the finished work of Jesus Christ. Welcome to Delivered or Deceived with your host, Rand Berkey. Rand is a former cult member who now educates people on the dangers of these types of groups, as well as people who would seek to exploit and terrorize others. Rand has devoted his life to providing assistance to those who have been hurt. No one wants to be led through the wilderness by a guide who has never been there. He has, and his desire is that you will find yourself delivered and not deceived.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Rand Berkey, and welcome to Reign of Fire Christian Radio. Tonight, Delivered or Deceived, Chapter 8. It is written. But on every broadcast, I like to set the stage, sharing one of the foundational scriptures of Reign of Fire Ministries, as well as Reign of Fire, even radio. In Luke 4:17 through 19, it states, "And Jesus was handed the book of the prophet Isaiah. And when he had opened the book, he found the place where it was written, 'The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because he has anointed me to preach the gospel to the poor. He has sent me to heal the brokenhearted, to proclaim liberty to the captives and the recovery of sight to the blind, to set at liberty those who are oppressed, to proclaim the acceptable year of the Lord.' Christ is the message, and I'm only one of the bearers of the messages." Well, ladies and gentlemen, tonight, Chapter 8, it is written. We've gone through my introduction to the Way International, my progress in the Way International as a Word of the World ambassador. Then we got to the time where I became Apprentice Corps member. Now we're at Chapter 8, where I'm entering the Way Corps, the first year in residence, and this is in Emporia, Kansas. The Way Corps, it is written, and this is the motto of the Way Corps, to acquire an in-depth spiritual and awareness, to receive training in the whole Word so as to be able to teach others also. Physical training, making your physical body the vehicle of communication of the Word as vital as possible. Practice believing to bring material abundance to you and the ministry. Go forth as leaders and workers in areas of concern, interest, and need. And again, those are the Way Corps principles. And now, Chapter 8. We took turns driving the truck filled with all our earthly possessions, straight from Stockton, Ohio, to reach the Rock of Ages, and without incident. There was a drop-off area for our belongings so they could be taken to Emporia, Kansas. This service was provided by the Way Movers. We unloaded the camper and set up camp. As usual, I went to sign up for Bless Patrol. By this time, I had collected a collection of gold hats. I was put in charge of a more strategic location around the grounds because of my experience, and as well as being a member of the Way Corps. We were also looking to find a ride to Maryland to stay with Rose's stepmother until we were required to be in Emporia. We posted our need for a ride on the bulletin board, which was used for such purposes. The teachings during the Rock that year were preparing people for the change of the presidency. We finally found a ride and stayed in Maryland for a couple of weeks, until we were required to be at the Way College of Emporia to begin our first year in residence. There was no thought of stopping to see my parents, considering their attitudes towards the Way. While at Grace and Jim's home, I helped them fix up their place. They had a barn there where they were converting to a center for lectures and seminars. They were trainers for a couple of pop psychology groups, and they had decided to turn their home into a bed and breakfast and the barn into a conference center to hold these sessions. While I was painting the outside of the barn for them, I was standing on a ladder that stood on the deck of the second story. Wasps started to attack me. I fell off the ladder and landed on my hip. I hobbled to the house and had Rose pray for me. After a short break, I went back to work. I was on the ladder again, and the wasps started to attack again. This time I was almost at the top of the ladder when I fell. I landed on the railing around the deck, again on the same hip, and nearly fell to the ground. I was able to hold on to the railing. A sharp pain shot through my hip. As I got up, I was barely able to walk. I went up to the house again and had Rose pray for me. I then put the paint and the ladder away. The next day I could barely move. I did not want to go to the doctor because I believed God had already healed me, and by going I would be admitting defeat. That weekend we were leaving for Emporia anyway. Grace and Jim took us to the bus station to see us off. We were headed to the Way Corps. We finally made it to Emporia, a small city about 70 miles northeast of Wichita, Kansas, which is surrounded by farmland. Werwell had bought the Wake College of Emporia around 1975. It was the largest training facility for the Way Corps. It was also a training location for the college division, which was a one-year program. No other institution recognized the degrees conferred upon those who completed either of the programs. The leaders had applied for certification with the state's Board of Regents, but with no success. Not that it was a big deal to those of us in the different programs. We knew that whether we were recognized or not, we were the only ones in the world who would receive the truth of God's Word. The devil did not want us to be recognized, because we would be a greater threat to him and his domination over the world. Once we arrived at the Way College of Emporia, we checked in with the receptionist and received our cards, which told us our room assignment, that what twig, branch, and area and section we were in, who would be our twig, and our work assignments. After finding our room, we went to find our belongings, which we found and proceeded to unpack. There would be a meeting that night for orientation. During the orientation that evening, we found the structure of the Way Tree was maintained in residence for organizational purposes, and so the senior corps had leadership experience when they went onto the field. It was also a great way for leadership to keep their eye on the people, as we were to learn. The year was divided up into 5 blocks, and we would change rooms, twigs, and work assignments at the beginning of each block. We were members of the 13th Way Corps, which shared residential halls with the 11th Way Corps. We called them the Senior Corps because it was comprised of members in their last year. The Way College maintained a staff of 56 full-time workers, 13 of these people being 12th Way Corps on their interim year. The staff filled the positions of administrative and leadership functions. The in-residence Way Corps did most of the work on grounds. We were divided into the A and B sections. One section would go to work in the morning and the other would work in the afternoon. While one would be at work, the other would be in class. We would eat all our meals together, and in the evening we would all be in class together. Every need of the campus was taken care of by the Way Corps, whether it was cleaning, landscaping, making repairs, or preparing food. With almost 500 people in the Corps, there was no shortage of workers. We were given handouts of what we were to wear for different classes and occasions. We received a pack of business-sized cards called retemery cards that had the 5 Way Corps principles and scriptures we had to memorize and repeat whenever someone asked. We had also been given our name tags with our assignment cards. For each meal, we had to have our name tags, pen, and paper for notes. If we did not have these items, we would have to go get them, and we would not be allowed to eat. There would be monitors at the door to make sure everyone complied. Meal times would be at 7, 12, at 5, and 5. We were told to be up by at least 6 in the morning and to be in bed at 12 each night. The men were allowed to be in the shower for 2 minutes, the women 5 minutes. In the morning, we were supposed to take 15 minutes to pray aloud, 15 minutes to speak in tongues, and 15 minutes to read the Bible. Having all this to do, we would end up having to get up much earlier. At breakfast, we would have announcements, and then we would go to either class or work. We would then have lunch, which usually was the longest meal. After lunch, one of the leaders would share with us. Those who had birthday would be allowed to speak for 2 minutes. If there were visitors, they would be introduced, and we would sing to them. We then would go to work or go to class. In the evening, we would have dinner, and then we would have a little time for ourselves. At 7, the whole corps would be in class until about 10. We would then have some more time to ourselves, or we would meet in our twigs. It was then time for bed. During the orientations, we were instructed about the red and green alerts. A red alert meant all of the college division was to meet in the fellowship room that was directly above the dining room 10 minutes after being notified. A green alert meant that the same requirements for the way corps as the college division. We were required to be dressed in our corps sweats, and tardiness would not be tolerated. The idea was we had to train to be ready to answer God's call immediately and without hesitation. We were training to lead God's people, and we had to be flexible in all different types of situations. We were to find out very soon there was another reason as well. After the orientations, we met with our twig. We got to know each other a little and then went to bed. Someone came and knocked on our door, declaring a green alert at 3 in the morning. We awakened, threw on our sweats, and rushed to the fellowship room. We were some of the first there and sat up front. The leadership chastised us for a sluggish response. Immediately after the scolding, we were advised the United States was on the brink of disaster. The communists were going to invade us and soon would destroy all that opposed to their takeover and occupation. Of course, their prime targets were all the way international locations. This was because we were the only people in the world teaching the accuracy of the Bible. In the view of the communists, we were the champions of spiritual freedom for all. They viewed such freedom as a threat to their existence, and we would put in jeopardy their goal of control the world. We were told they were about to poison water supplies in major cities, and at some point we would be forced to flee campus and live off the land for our survival. Of course, we were expected to continue promoting the teachings of the way while living off the land. The way leaders warned us that the United States monetary system would soon collapse, making it impossible to secure needed supplies. Therefore, we were instructed for those who had vehicles to keep gas tanks full at all times, because stopping to pump gas put us at high risk of being found and captured by the communists. We were told to inventory the skills and abilities of our twig members and make sure the list was complete to ensure self-sufficiency and survival, which included books authored by Werewolf. After we were released from the meeting, we fell in bed, dozed off in sheer exhaustion, carrying into our sleep the somber realization that the invasion could occur shortly. My last thoughts before falling asleep was, I'm in a fight for my life and the lives of those God entrusted to my care. I prayed for the safety of our nation and promptly fell into a restless sleep. The next day we were reported to our job assignments. My assignment was the mailroom. I would be responsible for shipping and receiving packages by UPS. It was not difficult work, but there was much to do in the beginning because many people had shipped their belongings to the campus. We met in our twigs at